This incredible Bugatti 57C made it through World War II only to be broken up and sold in two separate pieces. How was this priceless classic rediscovered and restored? Find out on One of a Kind now.
Nazi Germany was determined to flourish by ruthless aggression and conquest.
In Europe, for obvious reasons, pre-war cars are hard to find. An entire generation of European art and culture was destroyed during World War II. Some treasures survived. Some were smuggled out in anticipation of danger. Some were hidden away, hoping for the war to pass them by. And some were salvaged by simple luck. The body of this Bugatti 57C was separated from its chassis after the war, and in a small miracle, found a way to be reunited. This Bugatti Type 57C Roadster was special even before the war. Outfitted with a custom Voll and Ruhrbeck body on a 57C chassis. But what happened to it during and after the war made it absolutely unique. This is the story of the Bugatti Type 57C Roadster. In the late 1930s, the name Bugatti was associated with the height of precision engineering, a distinction that follows the brand even today.
Bugatti himself was an engineer. He not only built cars, but he built some boats, he built a train. He was a manufacturing genius. Bugatti in that era built the highest and best engineered car on the road that only was challenged by Mercedes in quality.
In April 1939, Voll and Ruhrbeck was asked to craft a custom body for this chassis that was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The Type 57C was so versatile, it was used as a racing car at Le Mans.
The car is a very unique car, a one-off. The car is kind of known as the waterfall car because if you'll notice the front grille, it has sort of a waterfall.
This Bugatti 57C was among the very last Bugattis sold before the outbreak of World War II. Once the car was delivered, it is believed to have been driven by some elite company around the streets of Berlin.
It has a little bit of history to it in that we think that it was driven by Sonja Henie, who was a famous Olympic ice skater, was in some movies. She may have been a consort to a German army officer, fable tells it.
The Voll and Ruhrbeck body was designed to turn heads. The car was featured in a magazine article in 1939 that was headlined, "A Dream in Light Metal."
The car is a piece of sculpture. The rear wings, fenders almost come to a point. The headlights are engulfed in the body itself. We think it just has great lines. This, along with one or two other cars, is the best of our collection.
This Bugatti enjoyed a very brief life as the toast of the Berlin party circuit. After the outbreak of the war, the car disappeared from the streets of Berlin, not to be seen again until 1946. Then, the enterprising Polish Minister of Transport toured defeated Germany, looking for cars that could be repatriated to his native Poland. When he found this Bugatti in one piece, he had it shipped back home, but it wasn't easy.
The car actually was taken out of Germany surreptitiously. There was a Polish guy who was a bureaucrat that took a lot of cars that he perceived as valuable out of German possession.
As this car was being delivered to Berlin, the German government had their eye on the Alsatian region of France. And only months later, the Bugatti factory would be flying the German flag. This car was one of the last cars sold and taken right to Berlin, which was not typical of Bugatti at all.
This Bugatti stayed safely behind the Iron Curtain until the 1960s, when it was sold to a Dutch car restoration expert. Because the Atlantic-bodied Bugattis were in such demand, the new owner separated the chassis and the body of this work of art, selling them each separately. It survived the most destructive war in history, but for the next 30 years, this classic car remained separated. In all likelihood, it could have been lost forever or sold for valuable parts. How did this one-of-a-kind car pull itself back together again? Find out right after this. This 1939 Bugatti Type 57C Roadster made it through the ravages of World War II largely intact.
Bugatti was at the top of its game in 1939. It was making the Type 57, 57C, 57S, and those were considered the ultimate fast-driving machines. The company, Voll Ruhrbeck, was one of Germany's leading small manufacturers of beautiful custom coachwork. They only worked on Horch and Mercedes and mainly German marques, so it was unusual for them to do a Bugatti. The current owner had the foresight and the luck to find the original body still in the same garage it was when it was put away and taken apart.
I was offered some Bugatti parts. I was told that it was a very well-known chassis, motor, drivetrain. The restoration of this car was the ultimate challenge. I asked for information on the cars and serial numbers. I gave it to an archivist who said, "This is an unusually important car." And he said, "I know where the body is." So that started the process then. We discovered the chassis, original motor, transmission was owned by one person in Switzerland, and the body was owned by a German in Germany. It was a wonderful experience for us because we had a lot of information on the car. We have pictures of it in Poland, in a barn with hay around it.
It was a time when the world was at war, and to think that this car was one of the last Bugattis sold by the factory before it was occupied by the Germans. It was just a remarkable story of provenance, of luck.
He couldn't get a car across the border, so he would do as much of a disassembly as he could. He would claim that he had a partial piece of a car. When he got it over, he put it back together. So it was a surreptitious kind of money-making scheme for this Polish guy. And of course, in retrospect, he saved the car from destruction.
The unusual waterfall grille and the doors and the rounded tail section were just a thing of beauty. The line of the French car is what appeals to me. The sensuous curve, the voluptuous shapes, the Art Deco influence, and the element of display that it brings. All French cars aren't practical. People wanted to show off in their cars, and they wanted to have something that was extraordinary.
After 30 years of separation, the Bugatti chassis was finally reunited with the one-of-a-kind Voll and Ruhrbeck body.
The feel of this car is pretty close to being a modern driving car. Very sure, very well balanced, and it's a pleasure to drive.
Once the Bugatti was fully restored, it re-entered the world on the grand stage at Pebble Beach.
It has fared very well. Unfortunately, we didn't win Best of Show. We think we could have won Best of Show for the next 3 Pebble Beaches with this car, but it's just the luck of the draw.
This Bugatti 57C made it through war and disassembly to be restored as the ultimate classic of its era. Has the Bugatti legacy endured as well? We'll find out right after this. Built in 1939, this Bugatti 57C with a Voll and Ruhrbeck body made it through the war and life behind the Iron Curtain before being separated and finally restored. This automobile has a happy ending. But what about the car maker that built it?
After the war, Bugatti still remained in business, unlike some of the other French car builders. But he built a few cars in the late 40s, even into the 50s. Several years ago, a large multinational car company did buy the brand and is now producing high-priced Bugatti automobiles.
Bugatti continues to build jaw-dropping cars to this day, combining the world's most advanced engineering with design that's ahead of its time. This Bugatti chassis with a custom Voll and Ruhrbeck body is an example of the forward-thinking design of its creators and is absolutely one of a kind.